Welcome to the Past in Pictures channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Yoshio Kodaira, identified by authorities as the perpetrator of serious crimes, was tried in 1947 for various offenses committed in Japan after the end of World War II, a period marked by efforts to hold individuals accountable for extreme acts connected to the conflict. British soldiers heavily affected by toxic gas appear in Estaires in 1918, an episode that highlights the harshness of World War I and the large-scale use of chemical agents, causing severe human suffering and influencing debates over future restrictions on this kind of weaponry. The incident involving an airship connected to a nuclear test in Nevada in 1957 illustrates the risks and the atmosphere of intense experimentation during the Cold War, a context in which nuclear technologies redefined global strategy and caused environmental and technological impacts. Chinese convicts appear wearing kangweis in 1902, a traditional disciplinary method that restricted movement and exposed them to public view, while signs displayed their offenses before the community, reinforcing practices of humiliation as a tool of social control during the Qing dynasty. Harold Agnew, a physicist from the Manhattan Project, holds the central component of a military device known as Fat Man, which would be used over Nagasaki in 1945, a milestone that helped bring World War II to an end and opened the nuclear age, deeply changing the global geopolitical balance. Ancestral body modification practices such as cranial elongation still existed in certain Central African communities in 1955, showing the continuation of local traditions and belief systems despite the intensification of European colonialism in the post-World War II period. The famous Sergeant Stubby, recognized as the most decorated dog in United States military history, served in 17 battles during World War I in 1918, when mascots and support animals played an important role helping soldiers on the front lines. The episode, recorded during a march by an extremist group in downtown Mobile, Alabama, on September 24, 1977, reflects the persistent racial tensions in the southern United States after the Civil Rights Movement, marking resistance to social equality and the struggle against racial intolerance. The portable radio built into a straw hat, created by an American inventor in 1931, reflects the search for technological mobility during the decade before household appliances became widespread, paving the way for the mass consumption of these devices in the years that followed. Military personnel standing guard on the steps of the United States Capitol were there to contain unrest following the death of Martin Luther King Jr., a decisive event in April 1968 that exposed racial tensions and led to significant changes in the country's civil rights laws. Osama bin Laden, a Saudi businessman known for recruiting mujahideen during the war in Afghanistan, later used that group in construction projects in Sudan, as reported by The Independent on December 6, 1993, marking a strategic shift in bin Laden's activities. Rows of essential products such as sardines, cheese, and tea appear labeled in Cyrillic, reflecting a store in the context of the former Soviet Union, where the planned economy shaped scarcity and centralized food distribution, defining everyday life under the socialist system. Passengers waiting to board an airplane represent the beginnings of commercial aviation, which became established in the late 1920s, transforming international travel, bringing continents closer together, and marking key technological advances of the 20th century. One of the most severe climate disasters in United States history, the Great Blizzard of 1888 brought East Coast cities to a standstill with record snowfall, blocking streets and homes and causing major loss of life, which pushed changes in urban infrastructure and transportation systems. Homeless residents occupied areas of Central Park in New York throughout 1932, forming makeshift settlements known as Hoovervilles, a direct result of the mass unemployment and poverty that marked the Great Depression, a phenomenon that transformed urban American life. German children improvise a kite using devalued banknotes, showing the impact of the hyperinflation experienced in 1923 in the Weimar Republic. This episode of economic collapse destabilized society and opened the way for deep political changes in Germany. The case of Rainey Allen, taken into custody by Sheriff Clemia Hurst in 1945, reflects the strict policing of the United States just after World War II, a time when major crimes were widely covered in the press, reinforcing debates about justice and public order in the post-war years. Rounded body vehicles travel through the snowy roads of the French Pyrenees in the post-war period, a time when road tourism was beginning to expand in Europe, encouraging road modernization and bringing closer regions that had long been isolated by harsh terrain. The use of the punt gun, a large piece of equipment developed for hunting waterfowl, reflects practices that were widely criticized in the 19th century, and its efficiency led to the banning of this method by the end of the 1860s, highlighting the rise of the first environmental and wildlife protection rules. The Stuka aircraft, famous for its distinctive siren and its innovative use in blitzkrieg tactics, symbolized German air power at the start of World War II, changing operational strategy and deeply affecting the course of events in Europe. Rural women like the one shown in Caen, northern Italy, in 1959, played a central role in the post-war rural economy, when the country was still going through major social and economic changes, and agricultural modernization was beginning to reshape older ways of life. Aboard the B-17 Flying Fortress, crew members operated military equipment at high altitudes during World War II in the 1940s. The use of thermal suits and oxygen masks was vital to face extreme cold and thin air, ensuring the mission could continue during aerial operations. New York public transportation underwent major modernization in the early 20th century, with electric streetcars becoming symbols of urbanization and daily life, even in the face of hardships such as the severe snowstorms of the winter of 1910, supporting integration and urban mobility. A pyramid made of German helmets in New York symbolized the Allied victory in World War I, which ended in 1918, highlighting American patriotic pride in the conflict and marking the rise of the United States as an international power. Joe Biden's decision to withdraw his candidacy for President of the United States in 1987 marked an important episode in the 1988 election race, showing how plagiarism claims and questions about authenticity can affect political careers in major Western democracies. During 1949, British filmmakers held a casting process to choose the actor who would portray the German leader in a new historical production, signaling the post-World War II interest in revisiting and understanding events tied to the German government through cinema. The steamboat H.K. Bedford sank in 1912 in the Ohio River, reflecting the challenges faced by river transportation in the early 20th century in the United States, a period when incidents like this pushed debates about safety and regulation in inland navigation. David Rothman appears beside the renowned physicist Albert Einstein, who by September 1939 was already living in the United States after fleeing the Nazi regime, a period marked by the beginning of World War II and by deep social and scientific changes. Albert Einstein appears beside his son Hans Albert and his grandson Bernhard Caesar in 1933, a year marked by the rise of the German government that led the scientist to move to the United States, reflecting the impact of persecution against Jews on European intellectual life. Between the 1930s and 1940s, names like Einstein and Oppenheimer stood out in science for driving decisive advances in physics, playing key roles in research that influenced the context of World War II and the development of technologies with major global impact. Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin, the main leaders of the Allied powers, met at Livadia Palace in February 1945 to discuss the final direction of World War II, a crucial meeting that would shape the geopolitics of post-war Europe. The presence of banners written in Russian, red flags, and military uniforms reinforces the symbolic atmosphere of Soviet celebrations held after victory in World War II, an event that established the Soviet Union as a global power and intensified the culture of party loyalty. The 1973 oil crisis in the United States was marked by a sharp drop in the number of vehicles on the roads as a result of the embargo by Arab exporting countries, creating fuel shortages and long lines at gas stations, while deeply affecting the economy and everyday American life. Geronimo, a recognized Apache leader, became well known for resisting United States territorial expansion in the late 19th century, symbolizing indigenous struggles to defend their lands, and stands out in 1886 for his surrender, an event that marked the end of the major American Indian Wars. Lowell H. Smith and John P. Richter carried out the first aerial refueling in history in California on June 27, 1923, a major milestone for modern aviation by allowing longer-range flights and revolutionizing military logistics and the possibilities of air transportation. Henry Ford drives his quadricycle through the streets of Detroit on November 29, 1905, marking the rise of motor vehicles and the United States' transition into a society shaped by the automobile industry, a key force in the economic modernization of the 20th century. The construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, opened on May 24, 1883, was a milestone of 19th century engineering and drove urban and economic development between Manhattan and Brooklyn, becoming a symbol of modernization and integration in New York City. The Ford Model T revolutionized the automobile industry by being mass-produced beginning in 1908, becoming a symbol of the modernization of urban transportation and contributing to deep changes in daily life in early 20th century cities. The launch of the Tandy 5000 MC professional system marked progress in personal computing with the introduction of the 20 MHz Intel 8038EX processor, greatly expanding processing power in offices and making VGA graphics more accessible in the late 1980s. The spread of portable electronic devices gained major momentum with Sony's release of the portable microtelevision in 1963, marking the arrival of television technology in personal everyday life and showing the search for mobility and innovation in the early 1960s. Concorde flight attendants lined up in 1960 represent the innovation of supersonic aviation in a decade marked by the technological race between Europe and the United States, when the Concorde became a symbol of sophistication and pioneering high-speed commercial flight. Performers hired to play the Munchkins arrived at the MGM studios in 1938, marking the beginning of filming for The Wizard of Oz, a movie that would become a landmark of Hollywood cinema and a symbol of the golden age of musicals in the United States. Lee Humiston became known around the world after being officially timed at 100 miles per hour in 1912, an unprecedented achievement for the era and a milestone in motorcycle history, fueling public interest in speed and contributing to technological progress in the field. Engineers made history by deciding to split a 7,600-ton structure into two parts, a bold and rare engineering move that shows the technical progress of the 20th century and growing confidence in the ability to move large buildings without tearing them down. The creation of the largest camera in the world in 1900 made it possible to photograph an entire train in a single shot, showing the search for technological progress and ambition in the early 20th century, when photography was pushing new limits to document great industrial achievements. The Shagir sculpture, dated to about 11,500 years ago during the Holocene, represents the oldest known wooden sculpture, highlighting the artistic sophistication of prehistoric peoples and providing valuable clues about ancient cultural practices in Eurasia. Researchers identified in Ekron, Israel, a ceramic pot containing burned figs about 300 years old, revealing eating habits and food preservation practices of the Philistine people during the Iron Age and providing valuable archaeological evidence for the study of the region. Auguste Rodin became one of the most influential sculptors of his time, especially after creating The Thinker, a work completed in 1904 that redefined the role of sculpture in modern art, marking a turning point in aesthetic discussions in early 20th century Europe. The Alcazar of Segovia, known for its imposing medieval architecture, played a crucial role during the unification of Spain, especially as a royal fortress and residence for monarchs such as Isabella I, whose coronation changed the course of the Iberian Peninsula. The ruins of the Temple of Bacchus in Baalbek, photographed between the 1870s and 1880s, show the Roman architectural legacy present in Lebanon, a reflection of imperial rule over the region since the 1st century, which strengthened cultural contact between East and West. Placerville, known as Hangtown, became well known during the California Gold Rush between 1848 and 1855 because of its rapid transformation from a small settlement into a busy center of prospectors and merchants, influencing the development of the American West. The expansion of ranches like the Bartee and Hat Creek reflected the advance of the so-called Old West, marked by intense migration toward the Great Plains between the 1870s and 1890s, strengthening cattle raising and bringing deep changes to American territory. Around 1900, Frederick Monson documented a wagon crossing dry trails in Canyon de Chelly, Arizona, a sacred place for the Navajo people. This record reveals the customs and challenges of the American Old West before rural mechanization and road systems transformed life in the territory. The presentation of the Panasonic flat television at the 1969 New York Trade Show reflects the technological progress of the electronics industry in the late 1960s, a time marked by the race to create more compact and modern televisions, establishing TV as a central part of home life. Windsurfing, mentioned in the early 20th century, reflected the search for leisure and innovation during a period marked by technological progress and the growing value placed on outdoor activities in Western societies, driving new sports and forms of modern entertainment. Postal workers appear proudly riding newly launched autopeds in Washington District of Columbia in 1917, taking part in the early spread of motorized transport in the city. The innovation helped speed up mail delivery, reflecting urban progress and the technological impact of World War I. The London subway, known as the London Underground, had already been part of the city's daily life for more than 100 years when the scene was recorded, marking a revolution in urban public transportation that made mobility easier and influenced major cities around the world. The warning, "Go slow and see our town, go fast and see our jail," represented in the 1920s the effort of small towns in the United States to strictly enforce speed limits, marking the rise of local traffic enforcement as a direct result of the spread of automobiles. Milk delivery by carts pulled by dogs was common in English-speaking rural areas in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, helping supply homes in isolated places before automobiles became widespread, a notable feature of everyday life in that era. The launch of the Dunkley Promoter in 1923 represented a significant step forward for women's urban mobility, making it easier for mothers and nannies to transport babies with less effort during a period of rapid technological change in the major cities of the 20th century. Pedal-powered children's cars like this one from 1922 symbolized not only progress in the toy industry, but also society's growing fascination with the automobile after passenger cars became popular in the 1910s, showing the impact of modern life on childhood. The construction of the Panama Slide at Coney Island, New York in 1908 marked the rise of urban amusement parks as symbols of popular leisure in the United States, drawing adult crowds and highlighting cultural changes in the early 20th century through the democratization of entertainment. Students in Pittsburgh gather around the Cathedral of Learning during the historic 1960 World Series, when the Pittsburgh Pirates won the title in a dramatic seventh game against the New York Yankees, creating local pride and inspiring memorable public celebrations. On busy Broadway in New York in 1952, places like Ike's symbolized everyday post-war American life, with quick meals at affordable prices reflecting the growth of fast food culture, a trend that shaped eating habits in the 20th century. The title, The Free Throw, and the reference to Atlanta in 1921 placed the scene in the early decades of basketball's rise in the United States, a period when the sport was still taking shape, marking important progress for professionalization and for urban sports culture. Michelle Phillips secured her place in music history as a member of the Mamas and the Papas, a group that deeply shaped the international music scene in 1966, a peak year for the counterculture movement and the explosion of folk and pop music, influencing later generations. Brigitte Bardot and Alain Delon became symbols of rebellion and glamour in European youth culture in the mid-1960s, a period marked by changing social norms, social protest, and the celebration of freedom, whose transformations echoed throughout the 20th century. Ozzy Osbourne and Sharon made their partnership public in 1985, a time when the international rock scene was marked by major tours and changes in the music industry, and a key period in establishing Ozzy's image outside Black Sabbath, with Sharon also acting as his manager. Jim Carrey appears in a 1967 Christmas celebration, a period marked by post-war cultural energy and optimism among families in Western countries, when gift-giving was becoming a central holiday tradition in North American homes. In the cultural scene of the mid-1980s, young people with striking style and a casual attitude gained attention, especially in movements connected to film and alternative music, influencing behavior through the use of analog cameras and spontaneous records of youth. The 1960s marked deep cultural changes in the United States, with youth and film icons often associated with breaking traditional norms, especially in California, where Malibu became a symbol of a modern and rebellious lifestyle. The entry of women into the Swedish Air Force as trained pilots in the early 1980s reflected major progress in gender equality within Sweden's armed forces, marking the beginning of a more active role for women in European military aviation. The growing movement of women in Denmark's urban areas around 1904 drove changes in consumption and women's presence in public space, as seen in the department stores appearing in Copenhagen, signaling the social and economic progress of the time. The local post office was a vital place for small North American towns, serving at the same time as a market and cafe, while the presence of the Coca-Cola brand and the display of mail schedules point to the rural daily life of the mid-20th century, marked by community life and close relationships. Hookah cafes, like the one recorded in Istanbul in 1885, were important social centers during the Ottoman Empire, encouraging gatherings among different cultures and social classes, and reflecting the growth of urban leisure spaces in the late 19th century. Dr. E. Rubush worked as a mobile veterinarian in Washington, District of Columbia in 1925, a time when home veterinary care was still a major innovation in big cities, making medical treatment for dogs and cats easier to access during a period of rapid urbanization. The train station beneath Niagara Falls, covered by a thick layer of snow in 1901, highlights the harsh winters faced in the United States at the start of the century, showing the challenges for transportation infrastructure in regions close to the great waterfalls. Groups such as the Asaro Mudmen, known for their striking mud masks, keep traditional cultural practices alive in Papua New Guinea, where the process of independence from Australian rule moved forward in the 1970s, strengthening the value of local indigenous identity. Walt Disney and Roald Dahl, identified in the caption as famous friends, represent central figures of 20th century culture, with Disney as an entertainment innovator and Dahl, then a Royal Air Force squadron leader, later becoming a highly influential post-war writer. The establishment, identified as the first and last chance, offers a glimpse of the rough urban scene that existed during the California gold rush around the middle of the 19th century, marking mass migration to the American West and driving decisive economic changes. Emerging in the early 1940s, the State of Jefferson movement represented a protest by residents of the border regions between California and Oregon for greater political representation, leading to the symbolic declaration of this new state in 1941, though without official recognition. As a driver removes a picnic basket from a Rolls-Royce against the New York skyline, 1952 marks the post-war period when luxury and modernization symbolized renewed optimism in the city's growth, strengthening its role in the global economic landscape. Seeking fortune during the great gold rushes of the 19th century, prospectors devoted themselves to hard work with simple tools, as shown in this 1898 record, a period marked by social movement, the growth of settlements, and deep regional economic changes. During World War II, air raids posed a constant threat to the British civilian population, forcing volunteers known as air raid wardens to protect residents, especially children, during bombings, showing the impact of the conflict on daily life in the cities. The record of a Mexican wedding in San Jose, New Mexico, documented by Charles Pierce, shows traditions of the American Southwest in the period after the region was annexed by the United States following the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, a shift that redefined borders and local identities.